Virginia, 1976. Early in the morning, the couple heard the doorbell ring. They weren't expecting anyone, so they were very surprised. Norma looked through the door peephole and saw a black car pulling away from their house. There was a box on the doorstep. Norma carried it into the house. During breakfast, Arthur opened the box that contained a device of unknown purpose. The note said that Mr. Stewart was coming to them at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The couple did not know any Mr. Stewart. After getting her son ready for school, Norma went to work. She is a teacher. One of the students noticed that the woman was limping. He gave the impression of being a very strange guy and asked Norma to show what was wrong with her leg. It turned out that she had no toes on one foot. Meanwhile, Arthur arrived for a press conference on NASA's new Mars exploration project. Scientists hope to find water and proof of life on the planet. Arthur Lewis was also involved in developing equipment for the project. The principal told Norma that the school authorities have to cancel the tuition discount for the children of their employees. This is very bad news for Norma. Norma shared this with a friend. Their family can barely make ends meet, so they can't afford the extra expenses. Arthur, who works in NASA's lab, has a big day today and wants to surprise his wife for Christmas. At this time, Norma, who was very depressed, heard the doorbell ring. On the doorstep was a man with a facial defect. He introduced himself as Arlington Stewart and asked if they had received the package with the push-button unit. Next, the man asked permission to enter and took a key out of an envelope, with which he opened the dome of the push-button unit. He explained that if she pressed the button, two things would happen. First, a person unknown to Norma and her husband would die at that moment. Second, they would receive $1 million. Norma was stunned by what she heard. As proof of his words, the steward opened the case with cash and gave the woman $100. Norma didn't understand what was going on. The steward said he had no right to reveal the identities of his employers. Norma also has to fulfill one condition, not to discuss it with anyone but her husband. They had exactly 24 hours to think about the offer. Arthur wants to make a prosthesis for Norma. He told a friend that at the age of 17, through the fault of a radiologist, she lost 4 toes on her foot. Soon Arthur received a letter and learned that his application to join the astronaut team had been rejected. It turned out that the application was rejected because the candidate had failed a psychological test. Arthur was depressed, for it had been his lifelong dream. When he returned home, the wife hugged him for support. Later, she told him about the mysterious Arlington Stewart and his strange offer. Arthur thought it was a prank, but Norma did not share his opinion because the money in the case was clearly not fake. In the evening, the couple visited the theater. Norma couldn't stop thinking about the push-button unit, but her husband was still skeptical. He suggested calling the police, but the wife dissuaded him, for then Stewart's offer would be canceled. At night, Arthur, using his engineering skills, decided to take apart the push-button unit. Under the lid was empty. There was no receiver or transmitter. In Arthur's opinion, it was a sham. Stewart wouldn't even be able to know if they pressed the button. The couple couldn't sleep for a long time. Norma thinks they won't get another chance to get $1 million. With that kind of money, they could secure their family's future. The next day, Norma told the husband that the leg surgery would have to be postponed because they couldn't pay for it. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Carnes received a call from his wife, who was hysterical. She said they had come for her. Jeffrey ran to his car, unaware that he was being followed. Arthur checked the $100 bill at work and made sure it wasn't fake. Perhaps everything else was real too. Arthur and his wife wondered what they should do. If they pressed the button, they would be rich. Suddenly, Norma pushed the button. At the same time, police arrived on the call and found a woman in the house with no signs of life. Her daughter was locked in the bathroom on the second floor. At 5 o'clock sharp, Stewart returned to the Lewis family home, having somehow knew that they had pressed the button. He left them the case with money, saying that he intended to make the same offer to the next person. It will be those with whom Norma and Arthur are unfamiliar. Shocked, Arthur tried to return the money to Stewart, but he said it was impossible. Arthur wrote down the license plate of the car. Norma fears that their lives are now in danger, for the next candidate may also agree to push the button. Meanwhile, detectives are investigating a strange crime. Neighbors saw Jeffrey run out into the street, and later his wife was found with no signs of life. No one has seen the man since. Jeffrey is a rocket scientist who works for NASA. The couple did not know what to do now. Despite the nervous situation, Arthur gave his wife a gift, the prosthesis. Now, she could wear high-heeled shoes. That evening, the couple arrived at the friend's pre-wedding dinner. Norma's parents were also present. Her father, Dick Burns, made a speech to the guests. A strange older woman kept her eyes on Norma and Arthur. Dick held a raffle of Christmas presents for the guests. First in line was Arthur, who chose the most inconspicuous box. Inside was a creepy black and white picture of the steward. Meanwhile, the nanny, who was looking after Walter, sees a silhouette outside the window. The boy suggested that Dana see his father's collection, which is in the basement. He told about his father's project related to the exploration of Mars. The scientist is convinced that technologies of the future will be indistinguishable from magic. Lana, Norma's mother, thanks Arthur for making her daughter truly happy. Later, Arthur asks Dick, who is a policeman, to check the license plate number of that very car and find out who the owner is. The strange student is here too. He works part-time as a waiter and watches Norma and Arthur all the time. The man found out that the student had earlier humiliated Norma in front of the whole class. One of the waiters told Norma that she was asked to come to the phone. It was Stewart who somehow found out that Arthur had contacted the police about his car. Stewart said he had employees all over the place. Every action has consequences, so the experiment will continue until the push-button unit is reprogrammed. Arthur took the student outside, not wanting to allow anyone to make fun of his wife. This drew the attention of all the guests. It was written on the foggy glass of the spouse's car that there was no way out. Upon arriving home, Norma paid Dana and told that Arthur would drive her home. He was surprised to learn that the girl lived in a motel. Dana speaks in riddles and it alarms Arthur. At one point, the girl passed out right in the car. After rummaging through her purse, Arthur finds her driver's license and learns that the girl's real name is Sarah Matthews. Suddenly, Sarah woke up and telling Arthur to get out of here, she ran to the motel. Her room had pictures of the Lewis family all over the walls. At home, Arthur told his wife that Dana was not who she said she was. At night, Arthur could not sleep. At some point, it was as if it hit him, and he went down to the basement. In one of the pictures, Arthur saw Stewart, realizing that he too worked at NASA. Stewart called Norma again and advised her and her husband not to play detectives. Norma asked Stewart for a face-to-face meeting, but he said he was looking at her at this very second. Outside the window, Norma saw a man who seemed hypnotized. Dick informed Arthur that the car belonged to a secret government organization. Arthur also learned from Dick about the woman who died under mysterious circumstances. Her husband is now on the run. Upon learning the time of the crime, Arthur realized that he and Norma had something to do with what had happened. A woman approached Norma and told her about a government experiment. The stranger gave her a note, advised her not to believe anyone, and passed out. She was taken away in an ambulance. Together with Dick, Arthur examined the crime scene and told him about Arlington Stewart. Arthur also saw a picture of a strange book. He discreetly put the picture in his pocket. Norma came to the library to find the book indicated on the note. She didn't expect her husband to be here looking for the book either. All the library patrons simultaneously turned their eyes to Arthur. The crowd followed him. Meanwhile, Norma was reviewing NASA's archival tape. Arthur tried to break away from the pursuit. The people who followed him were as if hypnotized. Suddenly, everyone got up from the tables at the same time. In front of Arthur stood a woman named Clymene. Arthur guessed it was Stewart's wife. While Norma watched a video of Stewart testing some kind of technology, Clymene asked Arthur to follow her. She explained to him that only one of the three paths leads to salvation. Astonished, Arthur watched as something that defies common sense happened. Norma met Stewart, and Arthur watched as, contrary to the laws of physics, columns of liquid rose from the floor. It was indistinguishable from magic. Stewart told Norma that he was once struck by lightning. He has been in contact with a higher mind ever since. Norma saw the man as a kindred spirit because she, too, has a defect. Clymene reminded that only one exit leads to salvation, and the rest leads to damnation. Arthur chose exit number 2. The substance pulled him inside, and his consciousness was transported to another dimension filled with white light. Norma woke up on the bed and saw the thickness of the water above her, behind which was her husband. At some point, the water, along with Arthur, came crashing right down on top of her. Their house was flooded. The couple put the house in order. Walter told his mother that he had seen her arrive home and, like a zombie, head for her room. Arthur and Norma are in shock. At this time, the secret agent tells Norm Cahill, Arthur's boss, about a former NASA employee who was struck by lightning. He was taken to the hospital, where Stewart passed away, but a few hours later, he came back to life. Now he's not human, but something else. After that, Stewart was brought to a secret military hospital and studied. Stewart had supernatural powers. His body had practically stopped cellular breakdown. Norma and Arthur attended the wedding of friends. The event was organized in a big way. The secret agent asked Stewart what the essence of his experiment was. He replied that when the experiment was over, his employers would decide the fate of humanity. If enough people don't push the button, humanity will live. But then a new experiment would begin. During the slow dance, Arthur told his wife about the strange things he saw in that stream of light. This place is somewhere in between realities. Suddenly, Arthur felt sick and went outside. Jeffrey pointed a gun at him and told him to get in the car. Worried Walter also went outside and began to call for his father. A few minutes later, Norma saw Walter being carried away by some unknown person. She too was grabbed. Jeffrey told Arthur about the creepy experiments. Stuart has a lot of puppets that do his will. He is almost impossible to defeat. Arthur became nervous when he learned that his son, as well as Jeffrey's daughter, had been taken by the steward's henchmen. Fortunately, Jeffrey knows where they hide them. They have a special pool that acts as a corridor between worlds. It is there that they immerse the test subjects, using them as human resources. Jeffrey tearfully confessed that his wife had also pushed the button. He had to take the wife's life because he had to choose between her and the daughter. A man dressed as Santa Claus stood in the way of the car. The next moment, a truck drove into the car. Jeffrey passed away, but no one else was found at the scene of the accident. Arthur was brought to a military base where there were military personnel as well as NASA personnel. Later, he and the wife were released home, where Stuart was waiting for them. The couple had only one question to worry about, where their son was. Stuart spoke of the consequences that await them because of their decision to push the button. Walter's eyesight and hearing have now been turned off, and the spouses are offered two choices. Either they keep the $1 million and their son stays that way for life, or Arthur takes his wife's life. In that case, Walter will be healthy, and the money will be put into his account and given to him on his 18th birthday. Arthur pointed the gun at Stuart, then the man reminded him that he was only a receptacle for the higher mind. If the receptacle ceased to function, another would take its place. Before he left, Stuart told the couple that their son was in the bathroom. The door was locked, and Walter saw and heard nothing. Norma does not want to condemn the son to suffering and asks the husband to do what he must. Arthur realizes that there is no other choice. But now, thanks to Stuart, he knows that there is something more beyond the bodily shell. Meanwhile, the other couple wondered if they should push the button. When the woman did, Arthur said goodbye to his wife and fired a shot. Soon Stuart came to the second couple with money. Walter, like Jeffrey's daughter once, was locked in the bathroom. Police officers enter the house to arrest Arthur. In the final scene, we see Stuart holding the push-button unit as he prepares to go to the next couple's house.